I thought I was starting over. I really did. I was 62, retired, and desperate for a clean slate away from the cold prairie of Steinbach, Canada. I saw her face on my screen, and I believed everything she told me. I gave her everything, my entire life savings. I bought the house, the car, the land. I used my pension to secure her future, believing it was securing ours. She called me her king. She looked into my eyes and promised forever, a gentle hand always holding mine. Now, I sleep on a friend's couch back home. The calls stopped months ago. I lost my future, my peace, and my heart in the Philippines. The worst part? I still can't hate her for taking what I was so willing to throw away. That last line is the hardest truth I've ever had to admit. It's what keeps me up at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'll ever feel like myself again. I'm speaking to you from that friend's borrowed living room tonight, and the cold here feels like it's reaching right into my bones. This entire story has been locked inside me, a silent scream I couldn't let out. What finally gave me the push to film this was an email from a viewer named Sarah, who has followed me since I started posting my early retirement vlogs back in Canada. Sarah wrote that she was starting to feel deeply concerned because the energy and hope were completely gone from my videos. She didn't pry. She just shared a personal story of being manipulated and said, "The only way out is through the truth. We will still respect you." Reading her message caused a wave of evolving emotions. First, there was a sharp, piercing humiliation, the feeling of being caught out, of having my deepest folly recognized. That quickly shifted into a heartbreaking empathy for Sarah, realizing we were connected by this universal, awful wound. Finally, a clear, ringing courage emerged. Sarah's respect wasn't conditional. She gave me permission to be broken, and that gift is what allows me to speak tonight. Before I start peeling back the layers of this betrayal, I want to ask for your support. If you appreciate the painful honesty I'm sharing, please hit the like button. Comment below and tell me if you've ever confused kindness for something more profound. And please tell me what city you are watching from tonight. Lastly, please subscribe to the channel. To all of you who are here, thank you. You are the reason this confession leaves the darkness of my mind and becomes a beacon. I truly, deeply appreciate your time. This is the whole story of how a fantasy built on hope dissolved into financial ruin in the beautiful chaos of the Philippines. Let me take you back to the day I booked that flight. The sun was setting, painting the water a deep, liquid gold, and I had my arm around Jenelyn. "It is so beautiful, my love," she said, resting her head on my shoulder. She was 28, full of life, and I was 62, finally feeling life return to my own bones after years of dead silence. It was just a year ago I was back in Steinbach, staring at the snow, staring at the walls, alone. My divorce was final, my career was over, and the loneliness was a physical weight. That feeling, that empty space inside me, was the real reason I got on the plane. I wasn't running to the Philippines. I was running away from Ben in Canada. Then I met Jenelyn online. Her messages were so quick, so kind. She listened to me talk about my loneliness, about my regrets, about my hope for a quiet retirement. She made me feel seen for the first time in 20 years, maybe ever. I remember telling her, "I just want peace, Jenelyn. I just want someone who doesn't mind my company." She laughed and said, "Ben, you are the most kind-hearted man. I will always want your company." That was all I needed to hear. My first trip confirmed everything. She met me at the airport, her smile wide and genuine. She was more beautiful in person, but it was her sweetness that hooked me. "We need a place that is only ours, Ben," she told me one evening as we were sitting outside the small apartment I rented. "I want to cook for you every day in our own kitchen." I felt a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the tropical heat. I told her, "We will build one, my love. We will build a house." She grabbed my hand tightly. "Oh, Ben, you are too good to me." I flew home and sold the last of my mutual funds, the final piece of my Canadian life. I came back, and we started looking for land outside Quezon City. The process was confusing. The lawyer explained the law to me. Mr. Ben, you are a foreigner. You cannot own the land. It must be in your wife's name. My heart paused for a second. The lawyer looked at me, waiting. I looked at Jenelyn. She put her hand on my knee. I would never hurt you, Ben. This will be our house. I will keep it safe for us. I remember thinking, she is my world, so what does a piece of paper matter? It is fine. I told the lawyer, put it in Jenelyn's name. We are getting married. The lawyer looked at me with a steady, unreadable gaze and nodded. The moment I signed the transfer papers, I felt a release, a terrifying, exhilarating leap of faith. I was all in. I had burned the boats. We celebrated that night, just the two of us. She held my face and kissed me. Now you are truly home, my king, she whispered. I will never leave you. Every day after that was filled with planning the new house. Her laughter echoed in the quiet air. I was walking on air. I would watch her talk to the construction workers, moving gracefully, all business 1 minute, then turning to me with that incredible, sweet smile. I thought, I finally got it right. I finally found my second chance. The fact that she was 28 and I was 62 didn't matter to me. Love is love, right? I was so convinced that I had escaped the isolation of my past life and bought myself a vibrant, warm future. Her smile wasn't just sweet. It was a constant validation that I was still lovable, still valuable, still needed, and I desperately needed to be needed. The first few months of our marriage were a beautiful blur of wood shavings and new paint. I told her, I don't want a palace, Jenelyn. I just want a comfortable home for us. She was so humble, so appreciative. I remember her telling me about her family's struggles in Quezon City. We had nothing, Ben. My mother worked so hard. I just want them to be safe. My heart went out to her. I saw myself as her savior, yes, but also as a man finally capable of providing the kind of stability I had failed to give my first family. I felt powerful, respected, and deeply loved. You are my family now, Ben, she had said to me, her eyes wet with emotion. I will take care of you forever. I repeated that line to myself 100 times. It was my mantra. The costs, though, kept piling up. First, it was the land, then the foundation, then the materials. Then there was a new expense. Ben, my brother needs help with his schooling. He will be a great engineer. He needs this chance, she pleaded. I immediately sent the funds. It was only a few $100s. Then she mentioned her mother's medical bills. My mother is sick, Ben. I must take care of her. How could I say no? I told her, whatever you need, my love. I'm retired. My money is here for us. I was using nearly all my remaining savings, but I saw the house as my nest egg and her as my partner. I convinced myself that every penny I spent was a down payment on a peaceful, long life together. My old friend, Gary, from Canada, video called me once. He saw the construction behind me. Ben, you put that house in her name, didn't you? He asked, his voice low and serious. I got defensive right away. It's the law, Gary, and she's my wife. Why do you not trust her? Gary sighed. I trust you, Ben. I just don't trust desperation. Be careful, my friend. I ended the call quickly, feeling a surge of annoyance. I saw his skepticism as jealousy, or maybe just a lack of faith in my ability to find real love again. I couldn't allow myself to listen to him. If I believed Gary, then I had to believe I was a fool, and I simply couldn't afford that realization. The house was finally finished. A beautiful, comfortable place. We had a party with her family. They were all so warm, so welcoming, thanking me over and over. They called me Tito Uncle and treated me with the utmost respect. I truly felt like I belonged. Later that evening, after the family left, Jenelyn and I stood on our new porch, looking at the stars. I reached out and touched the wooden railing. It is perfect, my love. She leaned into me. You did this, Ben. You saved us. This is our forever home. I will never leave you. Never. I remember thinking, this is why I came here. This feeling. This is what I paid for. I felt powerful, like a true provider. I had been lonely and invisible in Canada. Here, I was her king, the one who built their future. The emotional weight of the house being legally hers didn't bother me. I saw it as a profound, romantic act of trust, a test of my own faith in her that I was passing with flying colors. I was proving to myself that I could open my heart completely, one final time, and that real, unconditional love still existed. I was so proud of my faith, so proud of my commitment. I was proud to be her protector. The financial risk was just a cost of entry for this new, incredible life. I was convinced that I had bought love, yes, but I was sure it was real. The first change was subtle, like a cooling breeze on a warm day. It started after the house was finished and the spending slowed down. The constant communication, the sweet messages, the way she used to cling to my arm, it all started to fade. I remember one morning, I woke up and she wasn't in bed. I found her in the living room, talking on the phone, her voice low and quick, speaking Tagalog. When she saw me, her eyes snapped up, and she immediately said, "I have to go, bye." She hung up and turned to me with a smile that felt a little too bright. "Good morning, my love." I was just talking to my cousin about her baby. I smiled back, trying to push down the strange tightness in my chest. Why did she end the call so fast? I told myself I was just being paranoid. The tension slowly ramped up around money, even though the big expenses were over. I had bought a small used car, and I needed to send the registration fee. I transferred the money to her account, since all the financial stuff ran through her. A few days later, I asked, "Did you take care of the car registration, Jenelyn? We need to get it done." She didn't look at me. She was fiddling with her phone. "Yes, Ben, I did. It is fine." But something in her voice sounded off. Later that week, I saw the registration notice still sitting on the counter, untouched. I asked her again, gently, "My love, the paper is still here. Is there a problem?" She turned on me, her eyes sharp. "Why do you not trust me, Ben? I am your wife. I am busy with the house, with my family. Why do you always check on me?" The shift in her tone shocked me. I backed down immediately. "I'm sorry, my love. I'm just worried about the police. My mistake." I watched her walk away, feeling the familiar, hollow pit form in my stomach. I'm the problem, I thought. I'm still carrying the anxiety from my old life. I need to trust her more. The outing started. She began going out more often, saying she needed to visit her sick aunt in the province, or that she had to help her mother with important errands. These trips were always sudden, and she never took me. "It is just boring family business, Ben," she'd tell me, kissing me quickly before rushing out the door. The first time, she left overnight. I couldn't sleep. I paced the rooms of the house I built, feeling utterly alone. I would try to call, and the phone would ring for a long time before she answered, sounding rushed. "I am busy, Ben. I will call you later. Don't worry." But I was worried. I found myself sitting in the living room, staring at the framed wedding photo of us, trying to match the sweet girl in the picture with the suddenly distant woman who owned my life. I even tried to talk to her about the increasing distance. I remember sitting her down on the sofa. "Jenelyn, are you happy with me? Tell me the truth. I feel like you are pulling away." She immediately started tearing up. "Oh, Ben, how can you say that? I love you. I am just stressed. My family, the money, the life. I am working so hard for us. Do you think I am using you?" Her tears were instant and effective. I pulled her into a hug, instantly regretting my question. No, my love. Of course not. I was just being stupid. I'm sorry." She held me tight. "You must always trust me, Ben. Always." And I believed her again. I wanted to believe her. I was terrified of losing the life I had paid so much for, so I kept blaming my own paranoia. The house title, her name on the deed, felt like a silent, heavy promise that I couldn't break. I was clinging fiercely to the illusion, denying the simple fact that the door was beginning to close on me, and I was on the inside, trapped. The tension suddenly shifted away from family emergencies and became focused on our future in Canada. Jenelyn became obsessed with securing her spousal visa. I thought, this is a good sign. She truly wants to build a life in Steinbach with me. She brought up the visa every day. When can we submit the papers, Ben? I want to be in Canada with you. I want to see snow. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and it erased the doubts from the previous months. I told her, as soon as possible, my love. We need to get the paperwork perfect. Then came the expenses for the application. I need the visa fees, Ben. They are very expensive, and I must pay the agent now. It is urgent documents. I didn't question it. I transferred a large sum, the last truly large piece of my remaining retirement savings. It was a number that truly scared me, but I rationalized it. This was the final investment. Once she was in Canada, we would be safe, truly a family, away from all the family drama here. I convinced myself that this move was the ultimate test, and she was passing it by showing me how much she wanted to be with me. A few weeks later, she was gone for the day visiting the supposed visa agent. I was bored, doing some cleaning in her small filing cabinet, a cabinet that was now in my house, and I found an envelope tucked far back. It felt heavier than regular papers. I pulled it out. Inside was an old, official-looking document. It was a wedding certificate. I opened it, my hands shaking. It had her full name, Jenelyn, and a date stamped a year before we ever met. But the groom's name wasn't mine. It was a local name. What is this? I felt a dizzying wave of nausea. I stared at the paper, then at the photo of her on my desk. My mind scrambled, trying to find an excuse. A previous marriage? Divorce? But she had always told me she was never married, never truly serious before me. The betrayal wasn't about the money in that moment. It was about the lie, the sheer deception about her life. When she finally returned home, her face was bright. The agent said, "Everything is good, Ben. Soon we will be in Canada." I walked into the living room, holding the certificate in my hand. I didn't yell. I couldn't. My voice was a choked whisper. "Who is this, Jenelyn? Who is this man? You told me you were never married." Her bright face fell instantly. Her eyes darted away from mine. She paused for what felt like an eternity, and then her composure returned, colder than the Canadian winter I had fled. "It was a mistake, Ben," she said, her voice flat. "He was bad. He used me. I got an annulment. It means nothing now. I am yours, now." The explanation was too quick, too rehearsed. "Why did you never tell me the truth?" "I told you everything about my divorce," I demanded. She just walked past me, dismissing the entire weight of the lie. "It is past. It is finished. I don't want to talk about bad memories. I am your wife." I stood there, holding the evidence of her deception, the perfect image of her, the sweet, innocent girl I married, was shattered. The house suddenly felt cold, the walls closing in on me. I was terrified, not just of the truth, but of what she was capable of hiding. I realized I was fighting not just a woman, but a whole invented history, and I still loved her. I was terrified of losing the lie, because losing the lie meant losing the life I paid for. The spousal visa lie, the quiet tension, it all simmered for another 3 weeks, a toxic heat between us. I couldn't look at her without seeing the wedding certificate, but I was too afraid to push her away completely. I was clinging to the hope that she had genuinely changed, that I was the real love, the real life. I thought if I just provided enough, if I was just kind enough, she would finally be honest with me. To prove my dedication, I decided to plan a surprise trip to Palawan for us, a second honeymoon of sorts. I wanted to rekindle the magic, to force the relationship back to the start. I needed to check flight prices, and since her laptop was closer, I opened it. I told myself I was only checking Expedia. The screen flashed open, and the messaging app was still active. I didn't mean to look, but my eyes caught a name and a profile picture that wasn't hers. I saw a long, emotional thread, recent, just from yesterday. The messages were too familiar, too intimate. My hands started shaking as I slowly scrolled up, reading the text, barely able to process the Tagalog, but the context was agonizingly clear. He was accusing her. He wrote, "Why did you tell him you were visiting your sister? I saw you at the mall." And her reply, "I must be careful. He is getting suspicious. Just wait. I need more time." Then, the final, crushing blow. He sent a photo. It was a picture of him and Jenelyn, smiling, arms linked, standing not far from the mango tree right outside the living room window. They were in front of my house. The feeling wasn't anger. It was the sheer, brutal realization of the scale of the lie. The blood drained from my face, and the room spun. It wasn't just a previous marriage or a few hidden expenses. It was an active deception being carried out right under my roof, in the life I had paid for. I closed the laptop, my heart hammering against my ribs, and walked outside, taking huge gulps of air. I stood by the mango tree, the scene of their photo, and I felt nothing but raw, silent shock. I am 62 years old, and I am standing in the middle of a foreign country, completely played. I waited. I had to see her face when she came home. When I heard the motorbike pull up, I walked to the door. She came in, cheerful. "Hello, my love. I had such a busy day with the agent." Her voice was light, carefree. I didn't say a word. I just pointed to the laptop. She looked at the screen, then at my face. The cheerfulness vanished. Her eyes, usually so soft, became hard and calculating, completely devoid of the sweetness I loved. I asked her, the words tasting like dust, "Who is he, Jenelyn?" The silence was louder than any scream. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry or make an excuse. She just stared at me, a blank mask over her beautiful face. It was the first time I saw her as a complete stranger. She said, "He is nothing. He is just a friend. He helps me sometimes." I laughed, a horrible, choking sound. "He helps you? Standing outside my house? Messaging you about my suspicion?" I felt the rage finally rise, but it was hollow. I was already broken. She sighed, an impatient sound. "Look, Ben, I need to leave for a while. I need space. You are too much worried." She walked into our bedroom, the room I had painted, and started packing a small bag. I watched her, unable to move. I was watching my life walk out the door. "Where are you going, Jenelyn?" I asked. She stopped, looked over her shoulder and said, "I am going to stay with my mother. I need to think," and she left. She packed her bag, kissed me quickly on the cheek, and walked out of the house I paid for, leaving me alone with the silent laptop and the bitter realization of her betrayal. I didn't chase her. I collapsed onto the sofa. I didn't cry in rage. I cried in deep, painful loneliness. I saw myself clearly in that moment. An old, vulnerable man who had bought an illusion and was now paying the full price. I slept alone that night, the house quiet, the silence confirming that I had been used and abandoned. The worst part was knowing that I had allowed every single step of this tragedy to unfold because I was so desperate to believe in her promise. A week passed in that house, and I lived in a terrible silence. I ate rice and tinned fish. I sat on the porch and watched the road. Every time a motorbike passed, my heart jumped, but it was never her. My mind was a loop of denial and self-blame. Maybe she just needed space. Maybe I was too demanding. Maybe if I just apologize for finding the proof, she will come back. I was desperate. I just wanted my friend back, my home. I felt the awful urge to make things right, even if it meant accepting the lie. I had to know if there was anything left. I decided to call her. It took 3 attempts, but she finally answered. Her voice was guarded, formal, not the girl I married. "Hello, Ben." I tried to sound calm, gentle. "Jenelyn, I just want to talk. I miss you. This silence is killing me. Can we talk? Just tell me what's real. I don't want to fight. I waited, holding my breath. There was a pause on the line, long and empty. When she spoke, the softness was gone, replaced by a chilling clarity. The truth, Ben, the house is my house. The papers are in my name. I need it for my family. The words hit me like physical blows. They were delivered without anger, just as a simple statement of fact. But we built it together, Jenelyn. It was for us, I pleaded, the desperation finally cracking my voice. I put all my money into it. She ignored that. You can stay for a little while, but I need money for my mother's surgery. She is very sick, Ben. The old line. The sick mother. It was the same worn-out manipulation, but this time it was aimed at a hollow man. I felt a strange, cold calm wash over me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just empty. I could hear a distant, unfamiliar noise in the background. Not the noise of her mother's village, but something closer, maybe a bar. Jenelyn, I have no money left. I put the final amount into the visa fees you asked for. She went quiet again, the patience in her voice dissolving. You must have more, Ben. Your pension. The bank. I need it now. I looked down at the bank statement I had printed out, a single, pathetic line showing the remaining balance. 0. I had funded her world and lost myself in the process. She had taken the last of my money for her mother's surgery, the final transaction in this painful contract. I realized then the terrifying truth of what my Canadian friend, Gary, had said. I had bought a life, and she was now the owner of it, and me, until I became useless. She wasn't heartbroken. She was negotiating. I have nothing, Jenelyn, I said, and this time the truth was purely factual. I am broke. There was a click on the line. She hung up. I put the phone down gently, looking at the number 0 on the bank printout. The love was gone, completely erased, replaced by a quiet, crushing realization of my own foolishness. I had given her a fortress, and she had locked me outside. My life savings were gone, and I was sitting in her house, waiting for her final eviction notice. That cold, brutal silence was the last word of our marriage. The next morning, I started packing. It didn't take long. My belongings fit into one old, small suitcase, the same one I brought when I arrived, full of hope a year and a half ago. I didn't rush. I moved slowly, with a terrible, heavy clarity. I was no longer the king. I was just a guest who had overstayed his welcome. I walked through the house I had designed and paid for, touching the smooth, polished wood of the railings. I wasn't looking at Jenelyn's betrayal anymore. I was looking at my own profound failure. I stopped in the living room and picked up the framed wedding photo. I looked at the smiling old man next to the beautiful young woman, and I finally saw it clearly. I didn't love her. I loved the idea of escaping my loneliness. I was the one who had made the contract. I was the one who layered a beautiful story of unconditional romance over her obvious need for survival and stability. She was just doing what she needed to do to secure her family's future. I was the fool who mistook necessity for affection. I put the photo down gently. She never lied about what she was, I admitted to myself. She was a young woman trying to survive. I was the one who chose not to see it. The problem wasn't the Philippines, or her, or the culture. The problem was my own deep, gaping need to be saved, to be important, to feel like I still mattered at 62. I had rushed here, throwing money and trust at the first person who smiled at me, desperate to outrun the silence of my Canadian life. I sat at the dining table for a long time, staring at the empty chairs. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from exhaustion. I took out a piece of paper and a pen. I wrote a short letter, not to Jenelyn. I had nothing left to say to her but to myself. A final note on my time there. Ben, you paid the price. The illusion is over. You are broke, but you are not blind. I didn't leave it for anyone. I folded it and tucked it into my passport. It was a promise to myself. I knew I had to leave immediately, before she or her family came back and forced me out. I still had enough cash hidden away for a one-way ticket. I pulled out my old flip phone and made the hardest call. I called Mark, an old colleague from Canada, the one person I hadn't pushed away. His voice was warm and familiar. "Ben, where have you been?" I took a deep breath. I told him everything, quickly, honestly, admitting to the stupidity and the financial ruin. "I need a ticket, Mark. I need a plane ticket and a couch to sleep on for a while." There was a brief silence on his end. Then, he said, "I'll book it now. My spare room is waiting for you, old friend. You just get on the plane." The simple kindness of that moment, the acceptance of my ruin without judgment, was the most real connection I had experienced since I left Steinbach. I realized that the problem wasn't the distance or the foreign land. It was my own deep need to be saved by someone else. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in months. The focus had shifted entirely. I no longer blamed her. I recognized my own role. The pain cut deep, but it was an honest pain, a surgical pain, finally removing the delusion. I wasn't leaving with revenge. I was leaving with a quiet, terrible truth and a profound sense of self-accountability. I called a local taxi driver I knew, paid him in cash, and told him to take me straight to the airport. I remember looking at the clock, 4 a.m. I didn't want to see the sunrise on that road, or see her face again. I quietly closed the door to the house and walked away. I didn't look back. The house, the car, the land, it was all hers now. It was all a monument to my loneliness and my profound lack of judgment. The long, quiet taxi ride was my final farewell. I remember looking out the window, watching the rice fields and the scattered homes, the vibrant, chaotic life I thought was mine. I didn't feel anger anymore, just a strange, numbing clarity. The tropical heat, which had once felt like a loving embrace, now felt like a suffocating pressure that I was finally escaping. As we pulled onto the main highway, I looked down at my hands. They were empty. Everything I had worked for, everything I had saved since my 20s, was gone. But the fear was gone too. The flight was long and agonizingly silent. I sat by the window, watching the curvature of the earth slowly change, realizing I was crossing not just borders, but an entire lifetime of denial. I had chased the sun to find warmth, only to realize the real chill was inside me, and no amount of Philippine heat could fix it. I was 62, homeless, and financially ruined, but I was also awake for the first time in years. The cost of my enlightenment was exactly $400,000 CAD. That truth, simple and brutal, was a debt I had paid in full with my retirement. Landing in Canada was a shock. The air was dry, cold, and clean. I stepped out of the airport, and the wind hit my face. It was December. The ground was dusted with snow. It was a good cold, a real cold that cleared the manufactured haze from my head. Mark was waiting for me, his face lined but kind. He didn't ask questions. He just hugged me, a long, solid hug that communicated everything. "Let's go home, Ben," he said. "Thank you, Mark," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. He drove me straight to his house in Winnipeg. The spare room was clean, simple, and warm. I slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke up, the first thing I did was look in the mirror. I looked older, yes, but my eyes were different. They weren't desperate anymore. I sat with Mark that evening, and we talked about a plan. I had a small, untouchable government pension that would sustain me, barely. I could maybe find a simple, part-time job. I was starting over, not with a pile of cash, but with something far more valuable. Quiet, resilience. I was no longer the king in a foreign land, but I was the master of my own broken heart. I know I will always carry the wound. The memory of Jenelyn's initial smile, the sweetness, and the final, cold dismissal will never leave me. But I am not defined by her betrayal. I am defined by what I did next. I got on the plane. I came home. I learned my lesson. I went to the Philippines to find love and escape the person I was. But all I found, when all the money and lies were stripped away, was myself, the naive, lonely, but ultimately surviving old man I had run from all along, and this time I wasn't running anymore.